These are some of the most unexpected or embarrassing ways to die. Real stories of sometimes really stupid activities. So we won't use their full names to save their families additional embarrassment. Because let's face it, if you're taking a dirt nap after doing something really idiotic, you're not going to be embarrassed. You're going to be dead. But your family, bless their hearts, they don't deserve even more pain than these dimwits have already dished out. These are the most embarrassing ways to die. August 23, 2014. A chef from Foshan in China was preparing a delicacy from deadly cobra meat. He'd done this before, so it was really no big deal to chop off the serpent's head and then cook the savory dish. Maybe that's why the chef died, for failing to fully grasp the reality of the situation. He was bitten by the severed head of the cobra, which he cut off 20 minutes earlier. He died before help could arrive. Police called the case highly unusual. April 27, 2001. A Canadian man was visiting his mom's house to attend his father's funeral. He was trying to help out by cleaning the kitchen, and he must have slipped on a wet spot because he tripped over the open dishwasher door and was impaled on knives that were there waiting to be washed. The wounds were serious enough to take his life. And this isn't the only case like this either. Snopes.com has confirmed at least one other, a young girl, who died the same way, by tripping and falling onto a knife. Death by dishwasher. May 18, 2002. A 60-year-old auto parts salesman was enjoying his hobby, flying his 5-foot wingspan remote control plane in Tucson, Arizona. It was a typically beautiful Arizona day with brilliantly bright sunshine. It was so bright that he lost sight of his 10-pound airplane in the glare of the sun. So it was a complete surprise when it struck him in the chest, instantly killing him. And once again, this is not an isolated incident. Several hobbyists have been killed by remote control. January 1st, 2015. A hunter in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, UK, paid with his life after tracking a rabbit down its burrow on a New Year's Eve hunting trip. Before heading out, he'd had more than a little bit to drink. After all, it was a holiday, and he had been kind of down in the dumps lately. So while he was out hunting with his dog, he found a hole. He thought it belonged to a rabbit. He stuck his head in, and he got stuck. When the police found him, they said one hand was out of the hole, but the rest of his body was wedged in up to the waist. He suffocated to death. Police think his judgment may have been affected by alcohol. October 5th, 2012. Edward from West Palm Beach, Florida loved reptiles. And that's what killed him. The love, not the reptile. He was in a contest to win a snake from a pet store. He and about 20 others had to consume as many insects and worms as they could to take home an $850 python. He was having a great time, too, swallowing roach after roach, worm after worm. And while the store didn't say exactly how many of those gross insects he actually ate, the owner said he was the life of the party. Soon after the contest was over, though, he fell ill and began to vomit. An ambulance took him to North Broward Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. Literally bugged to death. October 21st, 1988. They call it the curse of the 13th floor in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It was the kind of day you just want to soak up some sunshine and breathe in some fresh air. And that's what Kachi, a cute white poodle who lived on the 13th floor, was doing when it lost its footing and fell to the ground. But not before hitting a 75-year-old pedestrian and killing her. It was a horrible scene. But that wasn't all that would happen. A 46-year-old woman was across the street and ran over to help when she was hit by a bus. And in all the excitement, a man who witnessed the whole thing suffered and died from a heart attack. Kachi the poodle also crossed the Rainbow Bridge. April 2nd, 1988. You know how you can be a little forgetful and leave something behind, like your phone or your keys? Well, that happened to an experienced skydiver in North Carolina. It was going to be a normal jump, like any of the 800 or so he had done before. They were in a tiny airplane about 2 miles above the ground. The skydiver was focusing on filming his fellow jumpers as they flew gracefully through the air when he jumped out of the plane himself, completely unaware that he forgot his parachute. His last words were actually recorded by his camera, which survived, to the horror of those who loved him. September 25th, 2012. A farmer from Coos County, Oregon, was out doing his evening chores, which included feeding his numerous turkeys and chickens and pigs. He had a couple of dozen large porkers, each weighing about 700 pounds or more. Well, no one was around to be sure. It appears the hogs were a little too rowdy, and they knocked the 69-year-old farmer down and killed him. They actually devoured his body and his clothing. Nothing but his dentures and a few body parts were recovered. June 20th, 2007. In a story that may remind you of a modern-day Romeo and Juliet, two 21-year-old lovebirds out of Columbia, South Carolina, were feeling especially romantic one warm summer night, so they climbed up onto a building and lay back to contemplate the stars. But being 21 years old, it didn't take long before gazing gave way to nuzzling and some sweet lovemaking. The passion was so powerful, they lost their grip and they slid off the metal roof and fell to their deaths on the hard ground 50 feet below. While still in the throes of passion, their bare bodies were found on the road by a very distraught taxi driver. August 25th, 2010. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, a Philair L-410 jet was making its usual route between Kinshasa and Bandundu in the Congo. The pilot was a very experienced 62-year-old who owned the plane, so it wasn't likely what happened next was his fault. From the account of a person who survived, the plane was on approach to Bandundu when a crocodile being smuggled by a passenger in a sports bag found its way out to freedom. The reptile and its big teeth caused all the passengers to run for their lives to the front of the small plane, destabilizing the craft and causing it to crash on the runway. Only one passenger survived. Oh, and the croc lived too. December 2nd, 2013. It was a night of raucous drinking in Oklahoma. Brad, a 33-year-old soldier, was home on leave. He and his stepfather had had a few too many, and after a while, the older drunk made a nasty comment about his ex-wife. That's the soldier's mom. Well, that didn't sit too well with him, and the fight was on. In the end, the 58-year-old was no match for a drunk and angry 33-year-old GI. The cops found him dead of asphyxiation. His stepson had yanked the elastic of his underpants up over his head and wrapped around his neck, choking him to death. Brad pleaded guilty to manslaughter and giving his dad a fatal atomic wedgie. And there you go, Volume 1 of the most embarrassing ways to go. I feel really badly for all the unfortunate victims who many times live full and impressive lives only to be remembered for something stupid like dying from a wedgie. Hey, thanks for watching, and be sure to check out our other scandalous videos on a variety of things you can't discuss with your mom, and get details.